Wait a minute. What was I going to say again? Okay, hey y'all, what up? Today I wanted to discuss the topic of specific races playing parts in like movies and stuff like that. Basically, so what's happened here is Scarlett Johansson is in a film, I think, called Ghosts in the Shell. And I think it's that part. I haven't seen it yet. I actually do want to see it. I've seen the trailers and stuff. Looks really cool. But apparently that part was originally written for an Asian female actress as opposed to a Caucasian female actress. So, and that's been a whole huge uproar about this. Lots of people have been saying, you know, that's not fair. It's whitewashing roles, basically. Taking roles that are designed for people of color, different minorities and stuff like this, and just changing it into a story about someone who's Caucasian, and then letting Caucasians sort of take stories that belong to people of color, stuff like this. Obviously, I'm a little bit skeptical of that approach. Most people know I'm not an us versus them kind of guy. I prefer to have a lot more unity and people working together and like, you know, teamwork and stuff like this. You know what I mean? I think that's the most important and positive way to approach. I think whenever we're approaching a discussion or an issue of race, the positive way to deal with that is to do it in terms of integration or getting everyone together. You know what I mean? Anyway, I don't want to delve on that too much, but it is something I think about a lot. Primarily, firstly, because a little bit about me, I love drama. I have a degree in drama. I love theater and cinema, and I really enjoy it. It's very important to me. I'm getting a phone call. I probably should answer this. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I'm back. But planning a trip to New York, so I just wanted to make sure everything's still good to go. But anyway, so like I was saying, I'm a theater guy. I'm a drama nerd, all that good stuff. Also, by the same token, I'm also an employment equity officer. It's part of my job. I work for the federal government. Basically, my job is to make sure that the Army isn't racist. So I do think about race, cultural sensitivity, and things like this. I do it professionally. I'm trained to do it, and it's an important role that I play professionally. So it's something I think about a lot, and it's important to me. So basically, I do kind of heed these calls from, you know, I think it's the Asian Women's Actors Association of the United States or something to this effect. And I understand. I'm very sensitive and receptive. Like I think those sorts of issues deserve concern. So that's how I feel about that. But in this particular instance, I'm not sure if I'm 100% ready to get on board and say, yeah, this is a big issue. You know, whitewashing roles has really taken place. Basically, from my perspective, I believe that the best way to approach a problem like this is to use math and statistics. And I know that's boring, and a lot of people have just now switched off, you know, whatever, click on to some other video or something. I don't even know if I even was watching these videos. I got to check my statistics and see. I'm probably not even talking anyway. I think the last time I checked, I had 7 views on my video from, I had another YouTube, and I had a video from, I just made a video of my friend flying a kite. He's got this expensive, huge kite, and it does tricks. It's like a trick kite, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, I put that video on YouTube. I think I got like 400 views. That thing was really popular. People really like kites. So I should probably get back to making videos about that. But I only know one guy with a kite, so I don't know if that'll work. But anyway, can you guys see me? Is my light on me? I don't think it's on me very well. I should get some serious lights because this isn't working. I'm too black. Anyway, so my point is, we need to use statistics. So basically, the workforce is X, Y, and Z. For example, let's just use this as a way to think about it. So if you've got a workforce of X, Y, Z, and I guess the films in Hollywood will take that as a subsection of drama of cinema anyway. If you see that those films are statistically only demonstrating X and Y, then, you know, there is a problem maybe. So you know what I mean? Like, you want the proportions to sort of balance out. And as long as that's happening, it's not a huge issue. The unfortunate thing is, to know if that's happening, you need to actually have a good count of the number of Asian women in the profession of acting, which I imagine some sort of actors guild or equity union, things of this nature, should be able to eventually come up with statistics for. But and then just count the number of films, and if it all balances out, I don't think it's a big issue. At least from my perspective, you know what I mean? And having a guy talking about women's issues, as always, you should always take it with a grain of salt. But from my perspective, it's not bad. And this is an issue for me as well, because a lot of times you'll see, the same thing with black actors versus white actors, and it's something to think about. But really, ultimately, what it boils down to is people really want to see themselves. That's really what it boils down to. And that's why you need that equitable balance. You need to have, so for example, if you have 10% women, then 10% Asian women, then you want the 10% of the roles to be held by Asian women. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Or at least close to those proportions. 11% and 9% wouldn't be the end of the world, but this is what you're aiming for, right? And if you fall beneath that, if you start to have like 5% and 10% or 1% and 10%, there's going to be an issue. You'll find that your movies aren't selling and people aren't happy, and there will be, it'll just be harder to reach a nice discord. You know what I mean? Equilibrium, I think, is more difficult in a creative environment, particularly with regard to drama, when you're not giving people themselves. People want to see themselves. And right now, the majority of the Western world, like North America, Canada anyway, majority is all white. Like, it's a lot of white people. And that's not the end of the world. White people aren't evil just because of the color of their skin or their history or their culture. You know what I mean? Just because someone's ancestors did bad things doesn't mean that these people today are bad. And we're all products of our environment. So if you see a white person who doesn't seem to be culturally sensitive, that doesn't necessarily mean they're racist. You know what I mean? It just means that this is the way they're brought up, and they're not necessarily sensitive to the issues that affect people of color. So, but anyway, I'm kind of rambling, and that's what this is all about. So I'm not mad at myself, but I want to stick to the point a little bit, which is we should have a statistical balance. And if statistically things are kind of working out, then I wouldn't get too worked up about it. I wouldn't get too worried about it, if you ask my opinion. Because it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? A lot of people have complained in the past when they try to take, I think, who was it? I think at one point they were going to have a traditionally white superhero played by a black actor. I remember, I think in one of the comic books, they changed Spider-Man from a normal Caucasian young kid who transforms into Spider-Man at night or whatever. They changed that into a Hispanic young kid, a young boy, who becomes Spider-Man. They just made his alter ego, instead of Caucasian, they made his alter ego Hispanic. And that was a huge deal. Like, I'm sure if I go on Twitter, I can find people right now who are upset about that. And I think it's a double-edged sword. If we're going to start saying, okay, stop whitewashing cinema, then I think a lot of other people will say, well, okay, then we should stop color washing cinema, and just have parts cast specifically as they're conceived of originally. And I think over the long run, at this stage anyway, that will hurt people of color more than that approach has a greater negative effect on people of color, in my opinion, because there's so many roles that are originally conceived for white people that I think black people or any person of color can play. I think the interplay in that direction would not be positive for us, in my opinion. So to that end, frankly, and tell me, put in comments, whatever, tell me what you think. I think it would be perfectly all right for a white person to play a role like Malcolm X or even Martin Luther King. I don't see a necessary problem with that if they can really embody that character and the script allows them to really play the role, especially if it's like a secondary, it's not the central part. So for example, if you're playing Malcolm X through the eyes of Elijah Muhammad or something like this, I don't know, then it would be less of an issue to bend racial barriers a bit. So I don't think that's a bad idea. I don't think it's wrong for white people to play roles like Malcolm X. And by that same token, I don't think it's wrong for black people to play roles like Hitler, for example. I think I would make a perfectly good Hitler if I spoke German. You know what I mean? So I think that can go back and forth. It's all about creating the audience's suspension of disbelief, right? That's really all it boils down to. The person on the screen isn't a superhero. That person's not Spider-Man. He or she is just some kid who got a pretty cool acting gig. Or, this person isn't Hitler. He's just some dude who's, trying to create artwork. You know what I mean? So it's all about suspension of disbelief. If you can bring about that suspension of disbelief, then you're doing it right no matter what your culture is. And also, if we start to really get sensitive about these sort of things and really look at it, history changes throughout, drama changes throughout time, right? So they're back in the olden days, in the Shakespearean time, all parts were played by men. There were no women actresses as well. Basically, female roles were considered like entry-level acting roles to be played by younger men. And in Shakespearean times, like Elizabethan theater is not the only example you see of this. Traditional kabuki theater in Japan was also a form of theater where all the parts, even female parts, were played by men. So theater in general is a very chauvinistic art, historically speaking. So any incorporation of greater feminism into this artwork, reducing chauvinism in theater, I think is a step in the right direction. Even if we do want to get bent out of shape about race. But even going a little bit away from gender and a bit more into race, take another example. Take, for example, you have a kid, a school trying to do a play and they need to cast an Abraham Lincoln, but most of the students in this particular school, and some grade school, kindergarten, grade 5, whatever, they're just kids. But most of them are black. So what are you going to do? Bus in some white kid from some other part of town to play the role of Abraham Lincoln? No, you're going to pick from the pool of candidates you have, and you'll probably end up with a young African American or African Canadian youngster playing a Abraham Lincoln or something like this. My point is these sort of things happen, and it doesn't matter. It's all about showing people themselves through the most effective lens you can, and building the suspension of disbelief. And all of this only becomes a problem when there's an obvious statistical bias toward eliminating some people's participation in the art form. So basically, from my perspective, I don't think we should get too worried about this idea of Scarlett Johansson playing a character that was written for Asian actresses. And I think that we need to, in general, as consumers of cinematic art, we need to be more open-minded about this sort of thing, because I think the world is going to become more integrated, it's going to become more open, and it's going to have more races and genders and people coming together. And if we say, okay, no, this can only be a certain way in XYZ, and we start closing doors and making things more difficult, it won't help the art, and it's just going to make things more frustrating for us and the creative people who make the art we love. So let's be open-minded and give people a chance and try to enjoy the film, and let's not get too worried until we start seeing serious statistical issues. Now, I haven't done any research. Maybe there are statistical problems. Maybe we do see Asian women being shut out of the cinematic and drama process overall, and that's problematic, because that will lead to us not showing people themselves. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm being too theoretical. Point is, don't worry about this too much, and let's support everyone who's out there trying to make artwork that we think is cool. If you want to see an action movie with a strong female lead, check it out. At least I intend to, because I don't know, it's not necessary to get too wrapped around the axle about stuff like race if you can avoid it. So yeah, that's all I wanted to ramble about, and I hope everyone's having an awesome day, and I'll see you the next time something kind of sparks my sensibilities. All right, thanks guys. Peace. Peace.